Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for President. Folks, I'm working all the time, so I just got a quick text, and I'm thinking I had a few seconds there. I want to welcome our Instagram audience as well. Now, I've got a special screen that you all can't see except right there. Maybe you can see it over there. It's not my usual screen with only my logo, my presidential campaign logo behind me. It's got 3 logos and my book. And I'll talk about why I'm doing a different screen today. Because today I'm starting something we're going to call the Save America-thon. The Save America-thon. But let me get into that in a second. First, our condolences go out to the people of Israel. Over 900 murdered, 2,500 injured. We have no idea how many have been captured and basically kidnapped or being held as hostages. We know that there are Americans who have been killed and Americans who are held hostage, which is one of the most ironic and most monumentally stupid things I can think of, which is our government. Joe Biden just released $6 billion to Iran to bring 5 hostages home. And now we've got more American hostages held by Iran. Which again, as I've said before, if you, in fact, I sent a press release, I got a press release going out today. If you pay terrorists for hostages, you're going to get more hostages. That's the way it works. Once you reward them for their brutality, for their disregard of humanity, they will keep doing it because it's lucrative for them. And so now we've got more hostages being held by Iran because Hamas is nothing but a surrogate for Iran. It's just, you know, folks, this is why I'm running for president. Because even though people may view me as a long shot, and even though they may think, well, you know, are you really qualified to be president? And I realize people could certainly raise that question. I'm more qualified than Joe Biden. This man has been in government all his life. That's all he knows, and he's just as dumb as a rock. I mean, former Secretary Gates said that in 40 years he'd never seen Biden get a foreign policy issue right. Well, I've never seen him get any issue right. Have you? I haven't seen him be right about anything. Now, he'll espouse, you know, like right now, he's got the White House lit up for Israel, which you gave Hamas, Iran, $6 billion to spread terrorism, and now it's manifesting itself in this the most vicious attack that Israel has perhaps faced in its history, and everybody's supposed to be placated and appeased because you lit up the White House in what is it, blue and yellow, I think, or something to signify the colors of Israel. I mean, and you know, dumb people who think they're really smart because they're arrogant and they're egotistical, they think they're really smart. They think everybody else is dumb. They're the dumb ones, but they think everybody else is dumb. So we're supposed to all, oh, wow, this is great. Yeah, Biden lit up the White House, and, oh, yeah, wonderful. And go our way rejoicing. It's just, folks, what is going on in our country right now is unconscionable. It's just, it's heartbreaking. Now, I know we've got a lot of domestic problems, but now we're facing a war in the Middle East. And of course, now we've got a war in Ukraine that we're financing and a war in the Middle East. And of course, we've got China breathing down our necks right now. So as far as I am concerned, even though our war with China is not a hot war, and I pray that it never will be a hot war, Lord knows, but we're really fighting on three fronts right now. And we've got a commander-in-chief who doesn't know his head from a hole in the wall. I mean, doesn't have the sense God gave a gnat. because it's all about him. It's all about his name. It's all about his money. It's all about his houses. It's all about his influence. It's all about, it's all about him. And he is just one weird, dumb duck. And I don't mean that to just as sort of an empty insult. He is weird, and he is dumb. And you know what? Frankly, that would be okay if he really cared about our country. If he really cared about America, that would, I could live with that. Some people might say Donald Trump is weird. I don't think most people would say he was dumb. Some people would certainly say he's egotistical. But I really believe that Donald Trump loves this country. And I believe he wants to do what is best for America, even though I think his ego does get in the way and it becomes about him sometime. So I'd simply use that analogy, use that comparison to say, I can live with those kinds of imperfections in a person who I really believe cares about us, cares about our country, cares about what's going to happen to America. Because there's not going to be any perfect person. But when you got a person who's just wrong on every level, and including, in my view, the level that he doesn't really care about America, he could care less what happens to us. I don't think he could care less what happens to the country. I think obviously he doesn't want the country necessarily to collapse, because then it would collapse on his head, and all of his wealth and all of his power and all of that he's got would be in jeopardy. But I don't think he cares ultimately what happens, how America's governed, whether the people of America are free or not, whether we've got a good economy or not. I think he cares about whether he's doing okay or not. And by the way, economically, he's doing okay, because China's helped him to do okay, and Ukraine has helped him to do okay, and Russia's helped him to do okay, and Hunter's been his bag man. And so, they've cashed in big time, big time. It's a sad situation. We are being governed by a family of crooks and a president who, in my view, as I said yesterday, is a traitor to our country. Now let me comment just briefly on Israel, and then I want to get into the Save Americathon. What you see happening in Israel right now is what our enemies want for us. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. What you see happening in Israel right now is what our enemies want for us. Israel is kind of a microcosm of America, not in all senses, but in the sense that it is a free nation, and it is a nation beset by enemies on all sides. And so are we, because the world doesn't like us. You know that, don't you? The world does not like us. And what you see happening in Israel right now is exactly what the world wants for us. It's what China wants for us. It's what Russia wants for us. It's certainly what Islamic terrorist nations and groups want for us. They want America in complete chaos, turmoil. They want America brought low, because basically, and they want to take over and run it as the evil, demonic, chaotic state that reflects their own internal reality. Because these people are demonic, and they're chaotic, and they're wicked and twisted and perverse. That's what they want. They want America to reflect them. So let me say, and I know this is well, let's put it this way. The left avoids saying this because they're afraid. Islam remains one of the greatest threats to the peace and stability of the world today, because it is the seedbed of so much evil and hatred and terrorism, and it is driven by a pathological ideology that demands that they take over the world, that Islam must rule the world. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that every Muslim believes that. I don't know that they don't. I think that that's built into Muslim ideology and Muslim theology, by the way. And I'm not saying that every Muslim believes that. Maybe some have just rejected it as wrong or whatever. I can't speak to that, but I can speak to this, that because of the inherent militant warrior culture of Islam that Muhammad himself established, Islam is the seedbed, the petri dish, if you will, for the development of these violent jihads, these efforts to take over, destabilize, destroy, murder by the edge of the sword. You know, right now, Boko Haram, when they attack Christians in Nigeria and other places in Africa, very often they will show mercy to a Christian who is willing to convert to Islam. You can convert to Islam or die. Convert to Islam or be a slave. That's built into the culture of Islam. No matter how westernized a Muslim might be, Islam itself is inherently dangerous and inherently destabilizing. And it is an ideology of hatred. I'm not saying there's no such thing, but I've never met a Muslim who didn't hate Jews. And I'm not saying there aren't Muslims who don't hate Jews. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is prevalent in their theology and ideology, hatred of Jewish people. And I'll tell you one thing, there's a lot of hatred of America too. A lot of hatred of America. I remember, folks, my goodness, this was, had to be 40 years ago. Had to be 40 years ago. I was living and working in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the time. We had a church in Boston, and we were leaving church one Sunday, and Harvard has a big newsstand right at the center of Harvard Square, and we would always pass that on the way home. Sometime we could get home when I think we were living in Medford at the time. We could get home by the highway, or we could sort of go through town. And very often I would just, drive through town because you can get from the south end of Boston and environs all the way to the north end and north of Boston for the most part, driving through the city. So you can go directly from Boston into Cambridge, and you can go directly from Cambridge into Medford, Massachusetts, without ever taking the highway, or you can get on the highway and go around, and it'll take you up. So we would go through the city sometime because there was a newsstand, and I would buy the Sunday newspaper at the newsstand on the way home, just kind of a ritual, kind of a habit. I would pull up right up to the kiosk, get out, buy my newspaper, throw it in the car, and keep going, because parking was terrible in Boston, but in this case, you could really quickly do it. Well, I'd gotten out of the car this one day, and I was looking over the vehicle. Every now and then I'd buy a different magazine, but I was looking over something, and there was a guy standing, 10, 15 feet from me. He was a Middle Eastern type, and I don't know what was in the newspaper or what precipitated it, but he said something about these Americans. And I was a patriot then, just like I am now. I kind of looked over at him. I said, what do you mean? America is this and America. He launched in. I mean, he launched right in. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Now, I don't even know this guy, right? I'm standing at a news kiosk, and I'm asking this guy a question. News really, a news island, really, because it's difficult to describe, but it's not just a small kiosk, but an island, and all around it are newspapers, and the road goes past it both ways, one side going north, one side coming south, and so a lot of people stop there to buy their newspapers and buy their magazines, and so other people are kind of standing around. I said, well, why are you here? Why are you here? I said, if you hate this country so much and you think it's so bad, I said, well, why don't you go back to where you came from instead of living here? And you know what he said? I will never forget. He said, I have a right to be here. I have a right to be here. And he was not from America. He was not American. You know, he had a thick Middle Eastern accent. Hey, I have a right to be here. Really? And I don't even know how the conversation ended. It was 40 years ago, but I just remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness gracious. We're bringing people into this country who hate our guts. Now here we are some 40 years later, and look at where we are. We're bringing them across the southern border, people on the terrorist watch list, people who want to destroy America. We don't even know how many of them we've got here. What's happening in Israel is exactly what they have in mind for us. And we are giving them the tools and giving them the access to do it to us. Well, look, that's why I'm running for president of the United States. Now, behind me is, notice at the top, Mission Save America. I wanted to talk to you all about where my campaign is and what we're doing right now, and ask for your counsel, your support. And if you want to email me, of course, you can email me at ewjackson@ewjackson.com. Very simple, ewjackson@ewjackson.com. If you want to, if there's something you want to say to me, something you want to express, I want to hear from you. Why am I running for president? You've heard me express my reasons for running and what distinguishes me from the other candidates. But I wanted to show you the constellation of efforts around me and a singular theme. I'm calling this a Save Americathon because I realize that there are many people who don't understand how my life has become ordered. See, my life has become ordered around this mission, saving America. It really has. I love my wife, I love my children, I love my granddaughter, and I want to do everything I can for them, but part of what I want to do for them is to save America. Now, over my right shoulder, right here, notice you see the Call Church. Now, our church's mission is very simple. It's threefold. Save souls, save families, save America. Save the nation. Save souls, save families, save the nation. Now, saving souls is, of course, what you would expect a church to talk about, certainly if it's a Bible-believing church, because that's its first mission. We got to win people to Jesus Christ, have them come to know Him and the salvation that is only available through Him. And that really is the first job of the church. Jesus came to seek and to save that which was lost. And so saving the lost is the first mission of the church. But God also created families as His first institutions, His first institution. And the family is under assault right now. And so saving the family is critical, because the family is really supposed to be the place where the gospel is propagated to the next generation. Well, that can't happen if the family is obliterated. And we've got a movement afoot in America by the homosexual activists and the gender confused people and the child predators, the child groomers that are operating in our schools now, trying to convince children that their parents are all messed up and thinking that they're a boy or a girl because nobody really knows, and the doctor was only guessing, and all this crazy stuff. I mean, this stuff is literally insane. Well, that's another attack on the family. The black family, as you all know, was intact in the early 1960s. In 1950, only 13% of, actually in 1950, only 13% of black children were born out of wedlock. 13%, that means 87% of black children in America were born in a two-parent, married, monogamous family and raised by their mother and their father. Fast forward to 1965, after the Great Migration out of the South into the North, and it's down to 25, 75. But 70, even at 1965, 75% of black children were born in wedlock in a two-parent married monogamous family. 75% in 1965. And I really believe that the drop from 13 to 25% being born, the increase of 13 to 25% being born out of wedlock was a result of urbanization. I think as people move north and they could live in a greater level of anonymity, and they had the influences of the city to surround them, I think it helped to destabilize families because there was less accountability. You know, you didn't have grandma and mom and pop and they're all living on the same plot of land, or, you know, I mean, everybody's relating to one another, and the family is the primary unit for everything pretty much that happens. And the church, you move north, suddenly the church is no longer the primary unit, and the family isn't either. And I think that caused some deterioration. But even then, 75% were born in wedlock. Now go from 1965 to today, where it's the reverse. 75% are born out of wedlock. The family is under severe, vicious attack. And by the way, this is happening across the board in all demographics. I mentioned the black family because that's where the problem is most acute. But in every demographic, this is happening. The family that remains most intact right now is the Asian family. We'll see how they weather the storm. But I guarantee you, we look up 10 years from now, and those families are going to be affected if the culture doesn't change. Because right now, the culture is an all-out assault on family. Academically, you got people telling there's no such thing as a pregnant woman. There's only birthing persons and all that. Men and women are not. How in the world can you build families when you blur the distinction between husbands and wives, fathers and mothers? It just doesn't work. It lends itself to the destruction of the family. So saving families is an important part of the church's mission as well. Remember, at the end of the book of Malachi, God said, in the last days, I'll send prophet Elijah. He shall turn the hearts of fathers to their children, the hearts of children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Which means God said in the last days, family is going to break down. It's going to be primarily because fathers have abandoned their children. Therefore, children have turned their backs on their fathers. And I'm going to send the Elijah, the prophet. And I really believe that doesn't necessarily mean a particular prophetic person or voice, but the spirit of the prophet. Just like John the Baptist came in the spirit and power of Elisha. He was not Elijah, but he came preaching a message that was Elijah-like. And God likened him to, Jesus likened him to Elijah. He said, Elijah already has come. You did to him whatever you want. He wasn't talking about the reincarnation of Elijah. He was talking about John the Baptist having that mantle. I really believe that mantle ought to be on every pastor. Every pastor today ought to assume that mantle, the Elijah mantle of turning the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. And you don't believe that to not do so brings a curse? Just look around you. All the crime that's running rampant in our country right now is the result of men who are being raised without their fathers. Almost all of it. The prisons are filled with guys who are raised without their fathers. The murders, guys who are raised without their fathers. The drug addiction and drug dealing and suicides, mental health problems, guys who are raised without their fathers. And women too, by the way. But the guys act out more aggressively than the women do and create a crime problem in our cities, trying to deal with their anger, their frustration, their sense of abandonment. They do that by attacking, by going after people. So the family is important, and save the nation. Now that's one you won't see on most churches' missions, but I really believe that is part of the mission God wants every church and every Christian to have, to save the nation. Save the nation for what? So that America is a nation whose God is the Lord. So that America is a nation whose God is the Lord. Now, why am I talking about the church? Because my church is still in need of its pastor, and I'm its pastor. My church is still in need of support. And I'm asking you, do you think that mission, saving souls, saving families, saving the nation, is the most important mission, and that maybe I ought to be spending all my time doing that? or most of my time doing that. Here's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you to remember that I do have a church. That church needs support. And if you are one of those people who says, well, you know, Bishop Jackson, I'm not so sure about this president thing. But I tell you what you do as a pastor is so critically important. I want you to give right now to the church, thecall.org. I mean, maybe you're one of those people listening to me right now who's never given to my campaign because maybe you got another candidate, or maybe you're not so sure that that's the best way for me to spend my time, or whatever. Give to my church. Help my church. Help us carry out the mission of saving souls, saving families, and saving the nation. You know, I just had a discussion with my wife about some things, because we have a school, the Maximum Potential Christian Academy in our church, about some things that are going on. And by the way, I'm going to run over today, so just I'm not even going to make excuses or apologize for it. I'm going to run over today because there's some important things I've got to say today. But we were just having a discussion. I can't go into details because it would be breaching confidence, but about some of the issues that we're having with regard to our school. And I was just thinking about that and thinking, you know, Lord, all of this work is important. None of it can be neglected. None of it can be neglected. We're trying to educate children, bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, teach them what it means to be Christians, citizens in a free nation, and what it means to truly be educated, not indoctrinated, but educated. We want to give them, teach them academic disciplines, but also teach them a love of truth, not the garbage that the government schools are spewing toward them. The website is thecall.org. If you'd like to give now to thecall.org. If you don't have a church home and you're looking for a church home, adopt us as your church home until you find one in a local area. I really believe that it's great to have a church that you can attend in a local area, but sometimes that's just not possible for a variety of reasons. Maybe we're looking, we haven't found a place yet. Maybe you haven't found a place where the pastor is going to preach the truth, as you know I'm going to do. Support us, help us, thecall.org, thecall.org. Now, at the top, over my shoulder, the top right, you'll see standamerica.us. Now, the name of the organization is actually STAND, S-T-A-N-D, which is an acronym for Staying True to America's National Destiny. I founded that back in 2009 when the Lord laid on my heart after the election of Barack Obama that there was going to be great division in America. And I don't say that trying to impress you as some kind of prophetic voice, but I just knew Barack Obama's background. I knew he was a creature of the left, the far left, and that he was going to play the race card to the hilt. And of course he did. He did. Every criticism of him boiled down to, well, they're just criticizing me because I don't look like any other president. I just want to shake your head and say, this nation has made you the most powerful person in the world. You and your wife, the most prominent people in the world. Now they're among probably the richest people in the world because they're also making a ton of money having been president of the United States. And you're whining about somebody disagreeing with you over race. I've even heard some conservative preachers, one I won't even name because it was embarrassing to me to say, well, you know, we know that he's getting some backlash because he's black. Look, I don't doubt that there's some people who, no matter what he said or did, didn't like him because he was black. I mean, I don't doubt that exists. But the criticism of Barack Obama was over his policies and over his worldview. That's why I criticized him. I certainly didn't criticize him because he was black. I certainly wasn't angry because he happened to be a black president. I couldn't care less. I was looking forward to the day when there would be a black president, but he wasn't the one. Lord have mercy. But I knew that something had to be done, and I was praying and asking God what to do, and that's what God gave me. Stand. Stand. Stand on Judeo-Christian principle, which is, Judeo-Christian is a shorthand way of saying standing on biblical principle, the Old and New Covenant. Remember, we get our commandments from the Old, right? We get the commandment for love from the New. And so the New is in the Old contained, the Old is in the New explained. So the two of them go together. The Hebrew Bible was written for the Jewish people, And then when Jesus came and revealed himself to us and inaugurated the new covenant, then we inherited the Jewish Bible, and then we have the New Testament or New Covenant scriptures as well. So the whole Bible, the whole Judeo-Christian tradition, if you will, and I mean tradition in the best sense of the word, meaning the influence of biblical truth, is what is the basis of our culture. That is the basis of American culture. I was talking to somebody a while ago who said, well, America's not a Christian country. I said, well, then what are we? I said, we're not Buddhist. We're not Hindu. We're not atheist. See, I think that the mistake that people make is they think that when you say America's a Christian country, you're trying to establish an official American religion. That's not what we're doing. What we are doing is acknowledging that there is an authentic American culture, and it's rooted and grounded in Christianity. That's all. We don't have an official religion. I don't want one. But our culture is distinctly Christian, not something else. It's not Muslim. I mean, you go to India right now, India will claim, obviously, freedom of religion for all people. That's not the fact. That's not really the way it is. But anybody who denies that India is a Hindu culture is lying to themselves. I mean, India is a Hindu culture. America is a Christian culture. STAND was formed to try to preserve that culture by bringing us together, unifying us across racial and cultural lines to do that. A lot of our outreach, right now we've got a program called the Forgotten Children Project, which tries to make people aware of the many children who have been murdered since the rise of the defund the police, dismantle the police movement began under Black Lives Matter. And we're trying to point out to people that these children are being murdered still today, being murdered in the streets of our cities, and nobody really cares. Nobody's connected the dots. We're up to close to 400 children murdered, 400 since 2020, and nobody's connecting the dots. And what STAND is saying, let's come together around these issues and let's figure out solutions to these issues that bring us together rather than ripping us apart, like Black Lives Matter was doing and is doing, the whole concept. Because the implication is that American culture doesn't believe that Black Lives Matter. That's the implication. Well, that's a lie. That's a lie, because America is a Christian culture, and the American people care about children and care about each other. I'm absolutely convinced of that. I couldn't be before you if that weren't the case. So standamerica.us is the website. Look, we've got Stand with Law Enforcement, and I really want to expand the organization. I'm not quitting on Stand. That is my baby. We're going to see it through until Jesus comes. Believe me, I'm thinking and praying all the time about Stand's transition, about how the work of Stand continues, how we further it. Well, the work of Stand has not stopped, believe it or not, folks. I mean, this very day at 12 noon, I will have Mike Farris. Yes, Mike Farris who started Patrick Henry College. Mike Farris, who was the attorney who helped lay the legal groundwork for the homeschool movement. Mike Farris, who is the former president of Alliance Defending Freedom, which I believe is the largest civil rights Christian defense organization in America. That Mike Farris will be on my call today at 12 noon Eastern Time. STAND continues its work, okay? We want to rebuild families. We've got in the works something called the Family Restoration Institute to help us rebuild families in America. Look, right now, we want to have a senior fellow for Israel so that we strengthen our ties to Israel and make Americans aware that our connection to Israel is critical to who we are as Americans and critical to our relationship with Almighty God as well. God says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Now, you may say, and I have donors who have, well, you know, I really like what you're doing with STAND. I don't know about this presidential campaign stuff, but I really like what you're doing with STAND. Well, you may be one of those. Well, give to STAND. Go to standamerica.us. You can give right now. Remember, my book is here over my left shoulder, that I am signing and numbering every book by a Patriot Partner, someone who signs up for $25 a month or more. I'm signing a book. And we've got Patriot Partners, by the way, folks. I'm serious. We've got everything. Right now, I think we've got about 190 Patriot Partners. We've got everything from $5 a month, literally, $5 a month, to $2,000 a month. It runs the gamut. Where do you fit on that scale? If you're not a partner with Stan right now, partner with us. Help us. Stan's going to be going on no matter what happens with my campaign. Win or lose, Stan's going to be continuing, okay? And then, of course, over my left shoulder is my book. Now, notice, Save Souls, Save Families, Save the Nation. It's got a component that shows the desire to be a steward over the gift that God has given us called the United States of America. Staying true to America's national destiny, it demonstrates a commitment to preserving this wonderful gift that God has given us called the United States of America. Now my book, this is my latest book. I've written three. Two were strictly Christian books. This book is written by a Christian and therefore certainly has my Christian testimony in it, but is not per se a book written for Christians. Sweet Land of Liberty, Reflections of a Patriot Descended from Slaves. Are you seeing a theme to my life here? Now, you may think, man, I have not read that book. I want to find out more about Bishop E.W. Jackson. Let me get the book. Get the book. You're getting the book supports my ministry overall. All of this that we're doing is supported by when you buy the book, you are supporting my ministry. You're helping me. I didn't get into ministry, by the way, to be rich, folks. In fact, let me say this to you. When I got to Harvard Law School, I was an unsaved man. I was a heathen, and I had only one objective in mind: making money. That was all. That was it. I thought, I'm going to figure out the track that's going to make me the most money. I could have left Harvard Law School and gone to Wall Street. I could have. But I got saved in the middle of law school in December of 1976, and it completely altered my thinking. Making money became less important. Not that I didn't want to take care of my family and everything, but what became important was fulfilling the will and plan of God for my life. That's what took over. And making money was just, that was going to be a byproduct. You know, making the money that I needed. And I didn't care whether I ever became rich or not. That wasn't even in my thinking anymore. Whereas before, that was my whole thing. The whole point was, I'm here to learn how to get rich. I'm serious. That's the way I thought. I'm here to learn how to get rich. I thought I was going to be a corporate lawyer or a tax lawyer or something like that. Hated all of it. When I experienced it, thought, oh my God, oh no. I mean, I was born to be a litigator. But of course, I practiced law for 15 years and gave it up because I really had other things on my mind and heart that I knew God was calling me to. So I didn't do any of this to make money. And the people in ministry make lots of money. And look, I don't have any problem with people making lots of money. God bless them for it. I want to make as much as I can, honestly, with integrity and all of that. To take care of my family and to leave not only a spiritual legacy, but a financial legacy as well. But I did not get into any of this to make money. But it takes money to run it all. Which brings me to the culmination piece of this. E.W. Jackson for president. Now remember, my church, Stand America, cannot do anything to support my political campaign. And I never would do that, okay? The church and Stand do not spend a dime on my political campaign, not a dime. There's a firewall there. In fact, I've even had situations where people who were working for Stand, they have to do other work, and we separate those out so that those hours are documented and you get paid by the campaign for those hours, so that we're not using nonprofit money to pay for political purposes. But look, I am a candidate for President of the United States now. I've got these other things I need your continued support in. And again, win or lose, no matter what happens with the campaign, those things are going to continue. My church will continue, Stand will continue. Who knows, I might even be back on the radio. I was with Abraham Hamilton III last night on his radio program. Great man of God, really blessed me. That's where AFR, Virginia Prodan, a bunch of other Christian organizations, that's where I've gotten whatever little exposure I've gotten for my candidacy. Because the conservative and the liberal mainstream media have both treated me like I was a non-entity. I'm so shocked by the conservative media, not by the liberal media. I thought they would be attacking me, but actually they figured out a better strategy, which is to suppress me, censor me. They've learned that here in recent years, that works better even than targeting somebody, because you can turn them into a non-entity. You can turn them into somebody that effectively doesn't exist. If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, we know the fact of the matter is it does, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because nobody is there to chronicle that sound. Nobody is there to record that sound, to hear that sound. And that's what they're trying to do, make me a tree that's falling in the forest, but, with nobody to hear. But look, I am a candidate for president, and I'm going right now through shall we say, a reassessment of my campaign. A reassessment of my campaign. The media blackout has been devastating. Devastating. And again, I know you might say, well, but you didn't make the cut on the debates. And that's true. However, I had help. Because if the mainstream media had been willing to acknowledge my candidacy from the very beginning, and I'm not saying, that their job is to try to make me a household name, but if they had even acknowledged that I was running, because I had a campaign kickoff, I had people at it, I had 100 people show up to be at my campaign kickoff in Richmond. The other candidates didn't do that. They just came on television, did some razzmatazz, say, I'm running for president. I didn't get that. And none of the press showed up for my announcement. They treated it like it didn't exist. Now, my base is the Christian community all over this country. People who live, and they don't want that. They don't want it shifted. They want a more secular approach, which is exactly the opposite of what America needs right now. So, I need you, number one, to pray for me, because there's a whole question of corruption in the Republican Party that, folks, it is deeper than I ever imagined. It really is. It's deeper and worse than I ever imagined. And this is from someone who has spent 40 years actively supporting the Republican Party. When I lived in Massachusetts, when you didn't have but 2 Republicans in the whole state, well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get my point. I was active then, supporting candidates then. I remember giving a major contribution to my wife and I then. It was a major contribution of $1,000 to a Republican gubernatorial candidate in Massachusetts, hoping that he could take it and we could begin to turn the state around. Of course, it went nowhere. The guy lost. Ray Shammy, some of you maybe somebody in the audience who knows him. Ray Shammy was a high-tech entrepreneur up in Massachusetts. He ran for governor. Ray Shammy was a dear friend of mine. He died of cancer. I talked to Ray Shammy right up until his death, prayed with him. He had been a candidate for governor and I think senator as well up in Massachusetts. I supported Ray Shammy. It went nowhere. Ray Shammy was very wealthy, had a lot of money. Did him no good. The last Republican candidate, the last Republican to serve as governor in Massachusetts before I left was Bill Weld, and Bill Weld was not a Republican. Bill Weld was a kind of Democrat, libertarian, because Bill Weld was a big proponent of homosexuality. I mean, he thought it was great. In fact, I had a guy, when I was in Massachusetts, we were doing a press conference in the State House. That's what we call it the Capitol building here in Virginia, but we call it the State House in Massachusetts. We were having a big press conference. And when I say big, I mean, we probably had 100 people in this room. We had protesters outside the room, the big homosexual group, and they were out there chanting at the top of their voice, we're here, we're queer, we're fabulous, get used to us. I mean, they were screaming it at the top of their voice. We're in the room with the doors closed, and a number of us are getting up speaking against the so-called gay rights bill at that time. And I was one of the speakers. Yeah, I've been at this for a long time, folks. I was one of the speakers. And as I took the stand, a guy charged the podium. Now, security got him down and arrested him before he could get to me. But he was coming after me particularly. For whatever reason, he wanted to get to me. And I've often thought to myself, he would have gotten the surprise of his life if he'd gotten to me. But I haven't had my children, my daughters. I don't think my son was with me. I think my two daughters, because I thought this is going to be my naive self. I'm thinking this is going to be just, you know, a nice, quiet press conference. My personal protection agents now laugh when I tell them these stories about how I was doing this stuff with no security at all. Bill Weld took this guy who charged the stage and was arrested for disorderly conduct. He would have been arrested for assault had he gotten to me and touched me, but they got him before he touched me. He was arrested for disorderly conduct. Bill Weld appointed him, the governor, the Republican governor, appointed him as his personal liaison to the gay community. That shows you what I was up against in Massachusetts. I've been at this for a long time, folks, for a long time. And I've seen all kinds of shenanigans among the Republicans. But I have never seen anything like what I'm seeing as a presidential candidate. I mean, one candidate has famously said, the game is rigged. Believe me, it's rigged. It's rigged. At the elitists in the Republican Party are no better than the elitists in the Democrat Party. And I say elitists because that's an attitude. That's not a status. It's an attitude, because they really think they know better than the people, and that they want to spoon feed the people what they want them to have, so that the people will do what they want them to do, and give them the limited number of choices they want them to have, so that they can control the outcome better. I mean, in that sense, they're really no better than Democrats. In that sense, they're really no better than communists. As opposed to giving the entire smorgasbord of choices to the American people and let the American people think through it and whittle it down. No. We're not going to do that, because there's certain voices we don't want to be heard. And the voice of Bishop E.W. Jackson is one of those voices that they don't want to be heard. Say, well, now, are you exaggerating at all? When I go to an event and talk to people who run that event, and they know who I am, and they know I'm a candidate, and I say to them, well, I know you're not going to put me on the stage. That's already clear. I said, but you could at least acknowledge me, that I'm here for this event, and that I am a candidate. And you know what the answer I got was, deer caught in the headlights, we'll work on that. We'll work on that. Well, it was a lie then, because they had no intention of working on that. They had no intention of acknowledging me. I mean, what would it have cost them? In fact, I think it would have been gracious, and people would have appreciated for them to say, look, we have a latecomer who's become a candidate. He's a longtime Republican, and he is running for president. We could not have him on the stage because we did not learn of his candidacy in time, but he is in the room, Bishop E.W. Jackson. What would it have cost them to do that? But they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. I think people would have said, oh, well, okay. Well, that was nice of them. I didn't know about him. It would have been, I don't think it would have been any big deal. I don't think it would have caused any surge in my candidacy. People would not have had a chance to hear from me. It was just a courteous acknowledgement. And you would think for somebody who's labored in the Republican Party for 40 years, you would think they would be saying, well, yeah, I mean, he's one of us. Let's do what we can to at least be fair to him. No. We don't want to hear from him. And then I was at another event where one of the same people who would not acknowledge me watched me get multiple standing ovations at an event and watch people pledge their support to me. And when I came up to him, I said, well, what was that all about that you weren't even willing to acknowledge me? You know what I got? Here's my number. Call me. We need to talk in private. What? I mean, what are we, 007? I mean, what is that? You know what that means? I'm not going to lie to you yet. I need to figure out what lie I'm going to tell you. And so we'll talk later in private, and then I can figure out what lie I'm going to tell you. I ain't even bother to call. I mean, what's the point? What's the point? This is Republicans, not Democrats. Republicans. So I need your prayers. I need your support because I'm trying to pray and seek God's face for how to break through this media blackout that is really destroying our campaign. It's destroying it. I mean, I can't put it any more starkly than that. If you haven't maxed out to my campaign and you can do that, max out. Max out. My campaign so far has been primarily financed by me. Not that we ever raised any money, thank God, we have. We have. But I would say over half of what the campaign has been put in by me. I mean, that's not unusual for candidates to put money in, but I'm not a multimillionaire with just plenty of cash sitting around. I could just throw at this. So I'm believing God and believing God's people, the Christians of America, if I can make them aware of the fact that I'm running to fuel my campaign and ultimately give me the thrust that I need for liftoff. So here we go. This is a Save America-thon. You want to support Stan because you just don't think my campaign is going anywhere. Look, I'm going to be. Stan's going to exist. If I become president, Stan's going to continue. If I don't become president, Stan's going to continue. Or you want to support my church because you believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is the ultimate answer. A lot of people don't believe there's any answer in politics at all. I've talked to people just giving up on politics. They just feel like, you know what? It's a waste of time. But you want to support the proclamation of the gospel of Jesus Christ, go to thecall.org. Make a contribution there. You want to support Stan, go to standamerica.us, make a contribution there. But if you really believe in my campaign and you believe that I ought to be the next president of the United States, or at the very least I ought to be heard, go to ewjacksonforpresident.com, ewjacksonforpresident.com. Or you want to support me some other way? Maybe you've done that already, but you haven't bought my book. Buy my book. Sweet Land of Liberty, Reflections of a Patriot Descended from Slaves. You see there, I've given you my publisher's website, faithfultext.com, faithfultext.com. But if you want to get the book as a Patriot Partner for Stan, you can do that. Go to the Stan website and buy it there. In fact, if you go to my campaign website, I think it will refer you over to the Stan website to buy the book in that way. Well, look, folks, I am dedicated no matter what, whether I'm president or not, whether I'm a candidate or not, I am dedicated to proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ and the word of God. He is my first and number one priority. I am dedicated to doing whatever I can to save this nation as a nation whose God is the Lord, because I believe that's the calling and the anointing that God has put on my life, and I'm committed to doing it for for the rest of my life until I breathe my very last breath. So either way, I'm going to be around. Hear the constellation of things that I'm doing. I wanted you to see the entire picture and ask you to, pick whatever your best options are. Pick whatever you think is the most important to support. Because some people may say, well, I think Stand is, or some people, you know what I think the church is. Some people may say, well, you know what I think his campaign is. I think we cannot allow his campaign to end. He's got to go on. We've got to see him all the way through to the end of this thing. And who knows what the Lord may do if we are able to maintain it. So listen, God bless each of you and every one of you. I will be back with you tomorrow with more of Save-A-Thon. We used to do this on AFR. We would dedicate 3 days to just raising funds. And we had a magnificent time doing it. My program always did very well because the people who supported me wanted the network to do well and wanted to support my program as well. I'm hoping that, by the way, so tell somebody, hey, you got to tune into E.W. Jackson at 8:30 tomorrow morning. He's doing a Save America-thon. That's what this is, a Save America-thon, and giving you options of how you can help me in my quest to save America. All right, God bless everybody. Again, our prayers go out to the people of Israel, and let us pray that this war will end speedily and they will recover. You can't bring back the lives that have been taken, but all of these hostages and injured people are going to be, we're going to need to rescue the hostages, and we're going to need to treat the injured. So again, one of the things Stan wants to do, we want to do, is to create a liaison, a senior fellow for Israel, because I love Israel. You pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. For thy brethren and companions' sake, I say, peace be within thee. We pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We pray for the Jewish people. We pray for Israel, because God has commanded us to do that and has put love in our hearts for them, because we understand that we came out of them. As Christians, we came out of them.